our flag right here. Hey, stand up. Keep going. For your group to come in. All right, so we're going to be led with the pledge from the Final Elementary kids. What's that, guys?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we usually take pictures with the kids. Can we do that real quick? Okay. Squeeze in, squeeze in.
All right, right here. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you.
So can we have you guys come through and shake our hands? And we'll start on that end. You want to start in there? You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Thanks for coming tonight. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, nice. I like this
Okay. Can I have a movement to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda with the following amendments. Additional certified and classified personnel actions for consideration, item E3. Revision to item E4B, bid for HVAC equipment for A. Cooper Elementary and Corporate Hope Auditorium. Remove item I1, executive session to discuss matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under COMA, and add item I1, executive session to discuss personnel matters for non-elected personnel.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. We'll move on to delegations, Q&A, and public comment. I believe we have 2 speakers tonight. If we could have Wendy, Jess, and Katie Under come up.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
It's ready for you?
Oh, that'd be great. You won't see us shaking behind this thing.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us some time to address something that we feel very passionately about regarding our school system. My name is Wendy Jess. Katie and I both have children that attend Plymouth Elementary School, which currently has 145 students and 24 staff. Included in that is our principal, Linda Finch, who works at our building, but only half-time. This is a topic we'd like to address with you this evening. We really want her to be a Plymouth Panther on a full-time basis. According to the third board initiative, goal number 5 is to provide safe, secure, and well-maintained learning environments. Plymouth Elementary is exactly 9 miles from town. Deputy Martinez has made the comment that if we were to have some sort of emergency at Plymouth, it would be at least 20 minutes for all units, including fire, police, and EMS, to be on site. That's a long time for our staff and students to go without help. Our PTO has been generous enough to provide some safety measures, such as the Barracuda system for every classroom. That's a device that allows the door to be secured from the inside and creates a barrier that would be hard for an intruder to break through. The school has also purchased items for the Alice buckets and has also purchased a ladder, which is to be used whenever an evacuation is needed to go over into the nearest field. There've been at least 288 school shootings since January of 2009. If we can learn one thing from these school shootings, is that we need personnel on hand to keep our kids safe. In our case, many times our secretary has to leave her desk to take care of other reasons. She's also the part-time nurse because we only have a nurse one day out of the week. There's no one to cover the front desk whenever she has to go away from it to answer the door. Having our principal there full-time, we feel would help alleviate this problem. It also would provide a safer environment for our children. My oldest daughter, Avery, who you'll see here in just a little bit in action, is getting ready to finish at Plymouth Elementary and move on to Horace Good. So in her 7 years, Mrs. Finch is her 4th principal. In my book, that's a revolving door. I think our district could do better.
Good evening, I'm Katie Unger, and I used to work in the school system when budget cuts started happening, and I remember losing my para and how that impacted me as a classroom teacher. And I never dreamed that 10 years later I would have to present in front of the board begging for a full-time principal for my boys. According to the Garden City Public Schools 5-year strategic plan, the first board initiative is to improve systemic approach and alignment of resources, including staff, to meet the needs of all students, leading to high achievement. I appreciate the board's forward thinking in this to finding an approach that will meet the needs of all the students in our district. And if I'm reading this correctly, the board views staff as a resource to help foster high achievement. I can personally attest to this with my own child because 2nd grade has been very tough on my Charlie. He went from a happy-go-lucky little boy to an anxious boy with multiple episodes of big emotions and lots of tears this year. His grades plummeted, and at a loss, my husband and I met with a pediatrician, we've had an EEG, and we went to further testing in Wichita to meet with an educational psychologist. We've had multiple meetings with our school, including the district psychologist, and we recently found out the results of all of his testing, and they concluded that my son has anxiety. Not only does he have anxiety, he scored in the 98th percentile. So where do we go from here? We have a principal who works half-time in our building and a counselor 1 day a week. When he needs an out, which is written in his 504 plan, he won't be able to go to our principal's pull-down corner. He will be pulled from our reading interventionist, who has a full schedule seeing kids. So I'm just sad because I've been saying, oh gosh, since we hired Mrs. Finch, we would love to have you full-time. I'm sad and sorry that it took something so personal to open my eyes as to why she is needed full-time. All buildings need and deserve that. Charlie is one child out of hundreds in this district that needs support. And if our principal is full-time during the day, she would be able to provide a space for my Charlie to go to handle his anxiousness without the distraction to the other students. She would be able to provide support to all students and staff at Plymouth. And can't we all agree that a student feels when they feel valued, safe, knows they're important, that achievement takes place? I think we can. And students, sometimes that person that they feel close with is not the classroom teacher. More often than not, it's the support staff or the principal. And we believe that we can do better and that the district can do better with this. And I believe that each of you were elected by your community because we believe that you will fight for what is right for the kids in this district and what is best for all kids. And we can keep adopting more technology and more programs, or we can remember that when push comes to shove, all kids need someone to invest in their life and build them up. And so we just ask that as you start allotting funds this next year, that you'll remember that no amount of technology can replace the value of a relationship. So that's all we had,
Thank you.
but it's important.
Thank you for taking your time to come here tonight and address the board and get through your nerves and, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna go to our next point, and that's the building presentation by Plymouth Elementary School.
That's gonna make them.
I'm not in this by myself, guys.
We were just gonna watch.
I'm Linda Finch, the building principal at Carmel Elementary, and I brought with me my instructional coach, Jillian Algram, my 5th and 6th grade math teacher, Trevor Henningsen, my 1st grade teacher, Amanda Hance, 4th grade teacher, Kim Brewer, 2nd grade teacher, Sydney Hovey, librarian/art teacher, Betsy Lodemeyer, my music teacher, Linda Arts, my 3rd grade teacher, Rupa Johnson, my kindergarten teacher, Rebecca Stevenson, my 6th grade 5th and 6th grade reading teacher, Matt Paxson. And Mr. Paxson is the one who is in charge of our Plymouth News team. And we have 4th, 5th, and 6th graders that work on the news. And our news team, especially Miss Avery Just, created this presentation for you to highlight our school. And Mr. Paxson, do I need to do some play?
Hello, and welcome to Plymouth Elementary. Creating bonds and setting examples is what Plymouth is all about. And that is why every Wednesday, 5th grade and kindergarten go out and play. They learn how to share and be a good player, and even learn about some life skills. Do you know what Reader's Theater is? Well, actually, our 1st graders really love Reader's Theater. First, Mrs. Hands or Mrs. Linville has the students memorize parts and lines of plays, and then on Friday they present and act out the play they have studied. Do you like recess? I for sure know that the kids at Cornell do, but it recently has been cold, so they decided to continue their fun inside. As you can see here, these 3rd graders are concentrated and prepared for math.
Hi, I'm George Washington Carver.
The 4th graders every year study, create a poster, and write a report on a famous Kansan of their choice. And they even get to dress up as them as well.
I'm teacher students at Plymouth Elementary in Garden City. Students host a YouTube show called Plymouth Tonight, which is my late night show. They recently interviewed Lieutenant Steve Martinez from the Findlay County Sheriff's Office. Take a look.
So why do Kansan work in the industry?
Why is that?
The 6th grade class is the heart of the news. We do the acting, editing, filming, and much more. Mrs. Bencomo, our science teacher, is very adventurous and outgoing with her classes. One experiment our school is working on is rock candy. She's having all the classes make rock candy to enjoy and have fun while experimenting. Recently, 2 kids from Plymouth have agreed to say a poem that they have memorized and said to Mrs. L herself. Well, every month, Mrs. L puts out a poem about the mood of the month, which kids memorize to earn a prize. Many of the students' favorite part of the day is when they get to sit down with a friend and enjoy their lunch. Some bring food home, but most enjoy a hot meal from the Plymouth kitchen. Singing. A wonderful way to express your feelings in song. Teaching the students of Plymouth that any type of music is important and to achieve your goals of music. When Foursquare is getting too rough on the playground or Little Panther has a sore tummy, the nurse's office is always open to students in need of some attention. It is always a good idea to exercise, and our PE teacher, Mr. Thornton, upholds that idea. Many fun games that we play are instructive and teach us how to have fun while doing great things for your body. Sketching, painting, and many more techniques are introduced in art class. Do you have a problem with a certain device or mechanism? Well, our very own Mrs. Lodemeyer is a super awesome technology fixer. Between her jobs, she also maintains her love for her 2 service dogs. Learning to save money is an important life skill.
Every Wednesday, students have an opportunity to make a deposit at the Plymouth Bank. The parents and PTO members of our school decided to host an art action for the benefit of Plymouth. The show choir has many members that meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. They perform during school concerts, high school basketball games, and other community events. This is our first year of our robotics team formation. Club members built their robots, competed in tournaments, and learned how to solve unique problems using technology.
It was a good learning experience. They have never been in a robotics competition, and neither have I. So we kind of just learned as we went, but we have gained a lot since we've learned.
Every Friday, Mrs. Finch promotes kindness by recognizing students who have made positive actions throughout the week. Plymouth Elementary School has reached out to the community in many ways, from donating stuffed stockings to soldiers, reading books to animals with the Humane Society, and more recently, working with Pennies for Patients to help beat cancer.
Right now, Garden Public Schools are donating shoes to give to third world countries such as Haiti.
Right now, we have 30 pairs of shoes that our school alone has donated, and we will be able to donate through the end of March.
At Plymouth Elementary, we don't just learn about reading and multiplying. There's also life lessons to be taught, from learning about internet safety to preparing our upperclassmen for their future in middle school.
Those were our two service dogs that belonged to Mrs. Lovemeyer. Thanks, guys. That's all we have. Do you have any questions?
Well done, that was a fantastic video. So you narrated it and edited it? Did you do all of it?
Mr. Paxson actually helped me.
And then Paisley, right there, she helped with some of the other folks too.
They put on a weekly newscast. So if you go on YouTube and search Plymouth News, every week there is a new newscast.
And what class do they work on that?
It's our afternoon enrichment time, so it's our walk to intervention time, but instead of interventions, it's enrichment. And so they are doing that during that time.
And is that the upper grade students?
4, 5, and 6.
Right, I think that you said that.
I do have a question. Is there any chance that could go on local broadcasting? It'd be nice for the rest of the community to see them. I would imagine it's public on YouTube, is it not, Mr. Paxson?
Yeah,
So it's public on
Plymouth Elementary School, the channel.
the channel.
See if they would need a little, some additional material or things like that to fill in some of the time, because I know that they don't always have high school people.
Okay.
I think it would be great to have the community see that and see what the kids are doing.
all three of my girls have chronic supply now, so we've got a long history, and I think it was pretty integral to their development. So I'm a big fan of the school. And I'd like to put you on the spot for a minute. Can you tell me, or do you know offhand, what your enrollment numbers have been like over the last 5 years?
I can tell you the last three, those are the three that I've been there, we've been between 145 and 150.
So it's staying steady.
Yes, sir.
And is your kindergarten class about the same enrollment as well?
Yes, sir, we 20 to 22. Fifth grade is my smallest class, and we have 16 in there, everything else is 19 and 20 or above.
So you anticipate the enrollment numbers would be pretty steady?
I would say so. Just counting on the number of siblings and things that we know we have coming up, we're probably at 20 to 22, yes, sir.
And I've lost track, but at one point it was possible for people to do transfers from school to school outside of their district or outside of their...
We're still using neighborhood schools, so it's not a high possibility.
Okay. So if someone wants to transfer to that school, it's unlikely they'll be able to do that.
That's a question for Dr. Carter.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay. So we'll move on to discussion items and start with kindergarten readiness.
So it's a kindergarten readiness from the last time I presented on. This one is the State Board of Education outcome kindergarten readiness. Remember the last one I said it gets confusing because we have readiness programs in our district as well, in which our report cards determine readiness for the following grade. But this is the State Board of Education outcome kindergarten readiness. I believe this is the last outcome I have to talk to you about this year. It's part of the Kansas Can initiative by Dr. Randy Watson and his team. And basically what he's saying is we really need to measure kindergarten readiness so parents, the community, and teachers know exactly what they're getting when they get a kindergartner. And that way they can use that information to help determine what individual students need from the time they enter the classroom to get them ready for first grade at the end of the year. And I think I just said that. Birth to age 8 experiences set the foundation for health, physical well-being, cognitive, communication, and social emotional skills. And readiness takes us all. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we move along, because it's one thing for us to have kindergartners and know where they are when we get them, but what do we do with that information so we can hopefully in the future get kindergartners who are even more prepared. So what the state of Kansas decided in the state board outcomes was every student would be given a snapshot of when those kids entered the door. And they do that through a tool called the ASQ3 and the ASQ2SE. Now the difference between a snapshot and an assessment is a snapshot is almost all observing the behaviors. And in our case, the ASQ, and this is statewide, is given by the parents. And the parents relay that information to the teachers, and then the teachers determine the measure. So it's a snapshot upon entry. It's not a pre-test and a post-test. It's a very brief questionnaire, fairly brief, that the parents fill out to determine readiness. The ASQ3 and ASQ2 is a developmental snapshot. It can detect developmental delays, but it can also detect strengths and areas of that we just want to watch and monitor. And it's completed by the parent, and why this is so important is if we don't get the parents involved in the kids' education from the beginning, and they start having an understanding of what development is in their child, it's going to be harder to get them on board later when those skills get even more difficult and
So this is pretty neat. We just got our ages and stages data put into Illuminate. And we were able, and ASQ3 and ASQ2SE, which is the social emotional part, is given to everyone in the state. I believe the window is about August 1st to September 1st, or a little bit less than that. It's about a 3-week window. And we give it to all of our kids in early childhood at the same time, and all of our kids in kindergarten at the same time. So this is a comparison of two of them, communication and fine motor. The top part is our kindergarten, and the bottom is our pre-K kiddos. The green means there's no concern. The yellow we're gonna monitor. The red is indicating a concern, and the gray is not tested. Now, if you're gonna look at that pre-K and see a pretty big span of not tested, anyone have any idea why that might be at the pre-K level at Garfield? We enroll those kids throughout the year. And remember, this is a snapshot of 3 weeks in August. So every month we do screenings at Garfield when a student turns 3, that's when they're eligible. So the enrollment at Garfield is a revolving door. And you can see at the kindergarten level, there's some non-people that didn't turn them in as well. That's something we're gonna wanna monitor and figure out why did parents not complete those. And again, we don't have state data to compare that to, but I'm anxious to see that. I think a lot of it is kindergarten parents are new to kindergarten if they're first time school-aged parents. And so it's just getting the routines and procedures down. And it may have been a lack of communication on our part as well. This is our gross motor, personal social, problem solving, and social emotional. What I like about these trends is our kindergarten definitely shows a bigger increase in the grades, or really a decrease in everything else, as they should. That's developmentally appropriate. And this just breaks it down a little farther. You can see that on the not tested, if you look at communication 20.66, fine motor 20.84, gross motor 20.48, why aren't those numbers all the same if they weren't tested? Perhaps maybe a parent just didn't fill out a section quite right, and that can skew that a little bit, so. And Garfield. So what can we do with this data? Having the data in Illuminate is invaluable. Crystal Steinmetz worked specifically to get our data in a format that we could read and understand and very teacher-friendly. It took her a long time, so that's why I'm a little delayed in getting this out to you. I wanted you to have meaningful data to look at. We have to start beginning to track the areas that are showing some concern. What popped out on my radar when I was reading this is the fine motor, but if you look at the development of a kindergarten and a pre-kindergarten student, that would be the last, probably to gain. So that isn't a huge red flag, but we wanna track that. Problem solving was another low one. Well, think about it. Parents want to help their kids a lot. You know, if they scream, holler, pound, that might indicate they need a snack. Instead of having them communicate, problem solve, get things on their own. So these are things we can share with parents. We don't yet have statewide data to compare our data to, but that will be another component to look at. And then when we have that data, we can say, do other districts have early childhood programs that are outperforming us? And if so, what are they doing differently? Or are non-preschool kids doing better? Why is that? Or are they not doing as well? How can we help those daycares and families? Where I see the need for this data to go are to many community groups that support our kiddos. Could be physicians, churches. A lot of our churches hold Sunday school and preschool. It would be good for them to have this data, as well as local daycare facilities.
Can you, before you move on?
Yes.
Is there any legal barriers to sharing that data with those groups?
Because they don't have student names, we would be okay to share percentages and areas.
Okay, so
Good
they wouldn't be
question.
able to necessarily identify
Correct.
kids that might be.
Now, parents get the results of this, so they could seek some resources, and we could encourage that, but we wouldn't share. Good question. So this is the first time we've had access to this report in this fashion, but as soon as the parents, or the teachers and parents turned in this report, there was an immediate conference with parents and resources were provided. Yes,
When do you expect to have statewide data?
hopefully soon. The way they break down their data is pretty interesting and a little difficult to read. So Crystal got it in a consistent format, and as soon as they'll release the full-on spreadsheet, we'll have it.
And then do teachers input the data into the system, or is it given to Crystal and Crystal does?
It's all given to the state. The state uploads the data onto a spreadsheet for us, and it's sent back to us, and we upload that spreadsheet and data into Illuminate.
Thank you, Renee.
Yep.
I don't know, until all those gray areas are taken care of, I think she needs to stay.
Good try, Lana.
Okay, so you're in the transition program.
Yes.
I wanted to give a little background about this presentation. Tracy Schellenberger and Paul Lappin are actually going to be doing the presentation. However, what I wanted to explain is each year the state audits special education, and there are 20 indicators through IDEA that we are audited on each year. 17 of those are considered critical. And unlike, I always compare it to our grading system in school, where we have A's, B's, C's, D's, in special education, we cannot have any errors. So one error and we are out of compliance, and they put us on a plan. So the first thing I want to do is acknowledge what these guys are doing in the schools, what our principals and our staff are doing, because the last year and this year we have had no errors. And we are on no plan, and we're doing wonderful. So with that, we then have taken to the teachers, and through collaboration time at district days, we said, what are we doing right and what do we want to improve on? One of the things that came up is secondary transition. This is getting our special ed students prepared to go out into the workforce, onto school, whatever their next step is after high school. We did a lot of brainstorming across 2 district days, and I'm going to let these guys talk about what happened from those collaborations then. This is actually indicator 13 and 14. So one of those indicators that we are looking at, how can we do better?
Thank you. Before we begin, I want to thank Dr. Ruda from the college for coming and showing his support for this brainchild that we've got. So we'll see what you think. All right. This is kind of what we're going to talk about. Sometimes when you hear transition, you think that means from building to building or program to program. We're going to talk about exactly what we're talking about with special ed. Indicators 13 and 14 will hit very lightly, but to where you'll kind of know what we're talking about. What we're doing right now, our continuum here in the district, some current programs, and our vision for the future. So, I've got my back to you guys, sorry. Okay, so our definition of transition in special education, that is our coordinated efforts from the school to the actual workplace. And what do we help our special ed kids do so that they have jobs when they get out in the workforce? Indicator 13 is what we do inside the IEP. We are required to go and show, starting at age 14, what we're going to do to help them with training and education, to help them get the job that they want, and if they need help with independent living skills, that's also in the IEP. And then all the different transition services that we use in order to help them reach that goal. Indicator 14 is the one where the state comes back a year after the kids graduate, and they look to see if the student is enrolled in secondary education, if they have a job, or if it's both. Okay. Currently, within the school, we have the PACE program, which I'll show you what that is. Pre-employment skills, a class with job shadowing at the high school, and then our Buffalo Coffee Shop that everybody knows about with Paul. The PACE program, that stands for Practical Assessment Exploration System. We have 2 labs. We have one at Horse Good and we have one at the high school. Each one is ran by a classified paraprofessional and they're supervised by a certified teacher. At Horse Good, we have 42 students that take part in the PACE lab. Some of them come from the functional classroom out at Charles Stone, which is 5 through 8. Part of them come from the life skills class at Bernadine Sitch, which is 5th and 6th, and then our life skills class at Horse Good. At the high school, we have 26 students, and most of them are from the functional and life skills classrooms. The pre-employment skills, this is Deb Popejoy. She just has a student starting tomorrow in one of our cafeterias that is job shadowing at Georgia Matthews. So yes, she is super excited. Her main goal is more to have an authentic working relationship. They go out and they do resumes, they see what it really feels like. Hers isn't so much as trying to find a job and get them in that exact one. When it happens, it's fantastic and we're all thrilled, but that's not her main goal.
All right, so it talks about this. We've had this model that's been pretty successful for us, for our kids in a lot of ways. So let's walk through that. We tried to figure out a way we can make this work, and I'll just let this play. If you guys are anything like me, you gotta see things to understand what we do, and this gives you a good idea.
A normal day starts off first hour, we get the cards ready to go, the kids get all set up, and then second through 4th hour, we go out selling. We take 3 different carts all the way around the school, and we serve, I believe, 76 classrooms. And 5th hour, we usually use to prepare Rice Krispie treats for the next day. And then 7th hour is our cleanup day, or cleanup hour for the day. The students in this class gain a lot of benefits. They learn social skills, vocational skills, and employability skills.
You know your sister? How many hours in here?
Okay, so my job at the Buffalo Coffee Shop is I'm a peer leader, which means that I get to spend time in the classroom, build relationships with them all. My specific class, 5th hour, we make the Rice Krispies. So we make like over 300 Rice Krispies every single day, so that's always fun. And we always listen to music really loud. I'm always a DJ, so.
What's that for?
We're a coffee shop, but we give a lot of opportunity to our students to expand their horizons, as well as we work very hard to give back to our community. But we've given a lot of money to charity. In the past 2.5 years, we've given close to $30,000. And that has gone to different charitable groups in the community and also families who have gone through some hardships. Most of our charities, we have some kids research them sometimes and classes vote on them. Or sometimes somebody will come to me with something they need or somebody in a bad situation and tell me about it. And especially if it's a student within our school, we try to help them.
My favorite part is the relationships that I've built. Every day I come in and they're always like, hi Nima, and like, that just like warms my heart. Like you could have a terrible day and like fail a quiz or whatever and your day would just suck. But like you come in here and like everybody's excited to see you. And they're just all so sweet and kind and you know, they're all growing and I get to see their progress every day.
So that's a little bit about what we have going so far. And with that, I think I have the best job in Garden City High School. We have a lot of fun in that job. So we came up with this vision of having an 18 to 21-year-old program for the students that...
We're here at Intelligentsia Coffee with my friend Jordan Schlansky. Now, Jordan, you consider yourself.
Alright, so this would be for the kids. A lot of my kids will stay in school for 7 years until they're 21. So this would be for the kids that have spent their 4 years or met their requirements for graduation. And we're looking at having a coffee shop based at the Garden City Community College. And with a couple other ideas too, where we could add some internship experiences with different groups within the college. Staffing would require 1 teacher and 1 para. Some things we've talked about is having an actual stationary coffee shop within the buildings where it's more real job, real world experience. With our coffee shop, we run 3 cars throughout the throughout the school. So we're in the school, but we're trying to fit what the school needs as opposed to a real life job situation. I already kind of mentioned that. Talk about expanding. Okay. So right now, there's not much change between what our 14-year-old freshman does and what our 21-year-old 3-time seniors do. They're in the same classes, so this would give us an opportunity to up the ante for them. And it's a continuation of the same stuff. It's a new environment. You spend 7 years in the same building, you're going to get pretty comfortable. You're going to know the routines very well. So this new environment gives them an opportunity to learn more and branch out more. So in talking with Dr. Ruda, it sounds like they were already kind of looking for a coffee shop. They were working on some remodel stuff and were interested in having something out there, but they couldn't find anybody to run it. So when we came to them and talked about this, it was like a perfect fit. That this is something we could help each other out. Some benefits. It's a good fit for both of us and good PR. I think it's been very beneficial for the students and staff within our building. It's changed our culture to a point. It's just a very positive thing that kids want to be involved with. Compensation, and I'm sure that we'll get into more specifics later, but with Dr. Ruda was happy with all we do is continue the things that we've done with our coffee shop. This is our first year that we are going to offer or 2 scholarships to our peer leaders. And then also continuing to put some of that money back into the community. Cost would be a teacher and para salary, startup inventory for whatever the teacher decides to put into that as far as what they're going to sell. And then equipment, sink, microwave, coffee pot. As Dr. Ruda said, the lights are on anyway, so that's not too much of a concern. And then I'm more than happy for our coffee shop to help with some of the startup costs just to get this thing off the ground. And then location, we've got some pictures. Came up with the idea of having a couple different locations on campus, and this would be the main one located right between their bookstore and cafeteria. So a good place that's going to get frequented a lot. And they also have this little old ticket booth. What department was this in? Fine Arts. And so where a bunch of their English classes are located, so most of the kids on that campus are going to be in that building every day. And then most of their classes run from about 7:30 to 1:30. So we would try to have the school hours for these students 7 a.m. to 2:10 p.m. And then a big part of our life skills stuff is trying to, most of these kids aren't going to drive, so they need to learn to navigate town and get around town where they need to be. So as we began this, we thought we'd like for them to start with a van and getting transported every day, but eventually let the kids or the teacher teach these kids how to navigate the city on their own. So coming from where they live to get to work using the city link, it's a good skill. Like, if you go out and get a real job in the world, you are going to need to get there. USD-457 isn't going to pick you up on a bus. And then meals, as we said, the cafeteria is located right there, so we can work something out with being able to feed kids and all that. Finances, we would run money through a GCHS student funds account, just like we do with our coffee shop now. And then, long-term, we talked about getting different groups from the JUCO involved with our group. And this was the first year we've had our peer leadership class. And it was awesome to see these high-achieving kids come in and work with my kids, like the relationships they form. It is a cool thing. And then all these peer leader kids, these are the kids we're going to send out into the community who are going to be in charge of stuff, be in different careers. If you go into education, you're going to have these students in your class. If you go into anything in the medical field, you're going to work with this population. You need to learn how to experience them and get to know them. And then maybe not right away, but we would like to be able to give the kids opportunities to expand into other areas besides just the coffee shop, so they can get real life work experience, either in grounds, kitchen, laundry, or the sports teams. The more exposure we can get these kids, the better off they'll be and more employable they are. And then I'm done talking.
All right, one of the programs that we looked at was Project Search, and we sent some teachers there to look at it in Salina, and it was kind of the same idea, only in a hospital. Well, then when we talked to Dr. Ruda, he pretty well hit all the things that we were hoping to bring out in Project Search. It was like every bullet point I had, he had an idea to go with it. And Project Search is still out there, but the startup costs are $16,000. They do have very good data. They have an employment rate of 75%. So it is very good, but right now we have someone that is willing to work with us for a lot less. And whoops, there you go. Doing exactly the same types of things that Project Search had. So we thought this would still be good to have out there in the future, maybe somewhere, but right now we've got a homegrown plan that we think would work. So if you have any questions, we're open to see if we've talked about them already.
So the search program collaborates with other businesses in your community. They set that up for you, if that's what they do, or?
Kind of. They like to start with just one business and do lots and lots there. There are a couple. El Dorado does 2 different places. They do the college and the hospital. But as far as helping us, they do give support, and they bring people in, and they also send you to California for some in-service, which sounded really nice. But it's still us doing it. I mean, they give you a checklist and a timeline, but it's still us.
So how does this proposed secondary coffee shop fit into your vision on Project Search?
If this works and continues to build the way that we think it will, then Project Search probably will go in the background and we'll just continue to grow our own. If it works well with the college, then in a couple or 3 years, we could go to the hospital and say, you know what, we started 3 years ago, this is what we had. Do you have something that, we could start with you guys? Because right now, they already have some people from Mosaic that work in the basement and have a little, I think it's a coffee shop, isn't it? Something like that already. So, but just to go ahead and expand it on out so it's not just coffee. So it goes ahead and goes into groundskeeping and everything else.
And approximately how many kids do you have participating, or do you think that you may have?
This coming year, we're looking at maybe 6 to 8. We would have had more if we had this figured out a little bit sooner, but several of our kids are going to go ahead and graduate and do something else. So it's just in that 6 to 8 range. And if we have a few of our students that are 19 turning 20 and they're just sophomores because of, you know, people back in different places. And so we might go, and we're talking about having a transition phase where some of those that are still going to be a junior have some credit for this type of thing so that they could go ahead and participate in it. So by the time they are seniors, they've had some real work experience.
And so they kind of go back and forth between the high school and.
But that's probably only for like this first couple of years. And then once we get everyone at the appropriate age, when they hit 18, they should be seniors and have all of their credits. And then this would just be an 18 to 21-year-old program.
And at that point, they wouldn't go to the high school, they would go to their job just like their age-appropriate peers would. And they would be in that same setting. So their school day would be that 7 to 2 at the college to run the coffee shop or help work at the coffee shop.
I assume I already know the answer to this, but what type of, do you have to have a special education certification to be the person who fulfills a role within the coffee shop?
That's what we're hoping for. We haven't really got it completely figured out, but.
It would be a special ed certified person that would help us get that reimbursement from the state. Yeah, that piece. But if you're interested, we do a transition to teaching.
And you referenced some type of compensation from the state. My mind is working on the resources with regard to the number of teachers that we have. And I'm wondering if we add a teacher to this program, if we're not going to subtract a teacher someplace else. Is that a misconception?
No, that is actually a possibility. And based on our collaboration days that we had on those district days, we have any number of teachers, I think, that would be interested in picking up this program, which will leave an opening for us to fill someplace else if we transfer internally.
And how do we do in terms of recruitment of special education teachers?
Well, I hate to jinx this right now, but shall we say
Right
probably
now,
not?
we only have early childhood openings.
Yeah, so it comes and goes, and generally, your assumption of that being a difficult area to fill is true, but we've done well right now, and I'm pretty confident we can backfill that position.
And so, in the community college is going to help us fund the special education teacher?
We actually have a position to cover that currently with some open positions that we had, whether we split position, or we're just using somebody who wanted to work part-time, so we have that other half of the position that we can work with, so we have the money
No new
essentially
money.
built in.
I'm sorry.
No new money is needed for the teacher position. It's already on the books.
We can shuffle things and cover it. There's an open position, we can assign to this. Especially.
Amazing, right? I can read your mind.
We're real excited about this because if you go to special ed conferences, you will hear a lot about 18 to 21 programs. It's what I would consider best practice, and as I mentioned ahead of time, we are in compliance with what we're doing, but it's something that we can do better in helping our kids get ready for that next phase. So we're in compliance, but we want to take it to that next step, and this is certainly would be considered best practice.
I just want to say, I think this sounds like a great idea. I think, and I'm especially pleased to see the college collaborating, because I hope this is the first of many different collaborations with the college and the district.
Well, essentially, you'd be shuffling existing positions to that location that are unfilled at this time. Because again,
Say how you feel.
yeah, so like we have an IEP review position that is a full-time position. We anticipate filling that as an IEP reviewer position. But the person that filled that only wanted to go part-time. So we just filled half of that position. Even though we have the need to do the whole thing, we can only fill half. So we have half of that position that we'll change the name of, reallocate it for this purpose. And so by doing that with a couple positions, then we'll need a new location, and there will be a teacher that will fill that, and we'll have to backfill their position. But as far as books, finances, then it's already allocated for that.
And there's also a para that would be attached with this as well, right? So I'm assuming when they're transitioning, you don't necessarily. And then would they also still get the cooking component with the Rice Krispie? I mean, they get all that maybe.
That is the plan, yeah.
Dr. Ruda has some special requests. I don't know what his favorites are.
So many.
The cool thing about that setup is when we toured the place, there's a back door that goes right into their kitchen. And he sounded pretty confident that their kitchen crew would be pretty happy to work with us and do some collaboration and come up with some things there that we could do that we can't do at the high school just from limited space and tools and things like that.
Well, I would just reiterate what Gene said. Collaboration is always awesome. Thank you, Dr. Ruda, for doing that and allowing this program. And I wish my niece had this program to go through. And I think that having those relationships and just exposure in every area that you know, the more areas that you can, especially amongst young people, is so vital to just understanding, having empathy, compassion. And I think that, I mean, we can use that as much as possible, so, great, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I wanted to clarify too, on the scholarships, you're looking at maybe education majors that are going to start at the junior college for the scholarship that you're going to offer?
For the one we're doing this year from our coffee shop at the high school, is just kids that have been in our program for 2 semesters.
The leadership?
Yeah, and then they're going on to school next year. We don't have anything real specific to it. But next, like if the Bronchbuster Coffee Shop were able to set up or have the funds, I mean, they could do it to education majors or people that work specifically with that group or both. There's a lot of different things you can do. And just with that, I'll kind of jump in. Another thing, I know the next thing on the list is the Grow Your Own program. I've had like 3 different girls talk to me that are in our peer leadership group that now they say, this is what I want to go into. This is what I want to do. So you're not just helping my kids, you're helping the future. Getting more kids involved in special education, which is a good thing.
So you can just go to the next PowerPoint, that'd be fine.
Sorry, I didn't need to jump in there.
Sorry, really quickly while you're still up there. So I'm assuming that the costs involved in all this are kind of paid for by the funds that they make, okay, and everything they donate is in addition to covering all the costs that you have with the coffee shop. Okay, I figured that was the plan, just to make sure, thank you.
Good.
Very good, thanks.
I might just add, so we're not asking the board for action tonight, but we wanted to get a sense from the board if this is an idea that you're supportive of. The next step would be probably a memorandum of understanding with the college as to what this would look like. We'll have to do some things on our end, like probably create a course, and some things that will map to some of that, and then kind of taking care of staffing things. But if the board seems to be supportive of this, then we'll proceed with the memorandum of understanding and kind of get that in the works and bring that back. So is that kind of the direction you would like us to proceed? See if one had not 2, if not 3, 4. Okay, so we'll have that in future meeting. Thanks, folks. Great work. Okay, well, Paul has segued into my PowerPoint. So first of all, I want to apologize today of all days, I woke up with a terrible cold, so I'll keep my distance, and if you see me patting my germs, I'm not that nervous. I'm trying to keep my nose from running. And if I wink at you or something along the presentation, it's because I'm fighting off sneezes, okay? So forgive me for that also.
This is an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, no, unfortunately it's not. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Grow Your Own, and unfortunately Dr. Ruda left because I was going to give him a shout out. Gene mentioned, one of many partnerships, and I'll get into it later, but the college, community college is certainly a huge part of this for us. So I've talked to the board numerous times on number of separations and where we're at with recruiting, and that continues to be a battle and has been over the course of a number of years, and will be for future years also. There is no good days on the horizon in a short time period, and so that's kind of sparked us to be thinking outside the box. We've done it in a number of different ways with our student teaching incentives and those kinds of things. And we certainly appreciate the board's patience and certainly appreciate the board allowing us to do some of these maybe out-of-the-box kinds of things. And this is one of them. But rather than talk about separation information, I'm going to talk a little bit about turnover rates. And that has come up a lot. So I went back through and I did a little historical research. So Dr. John Stoll is an anthropologist from KU, has spent the better part of 20, maybe over the course of 30 years even, being in Garden City, studying Garden City from a number of different aspects. And in some of his research, there was a component at one time about staff turnover. So through that research, going back through his document, in 1989, we at the time, in comparison to 6 large school districts, had the largest turnover rate of any of those 6, and it was at 22% in 1989. Further in his research, he went on to show that in 2009 and 2013, that number had dropped, but still averaged about 15% in terms of turnover. So if you take that information and look through the years, 13, 14, it's right around that mark, 14.6, 14.1. We had a bubble year go through in 15, 16 at almost 17%, and then back to 14.5, and then last year, the lowest that it has been in a long time. We had somewhere around 74 separations, which equated to a turnover rate of just over 12%. So that is a good number, one that I don't think is out of bounds. So I did a little more research.
Can I ask a quick question? When
Yes.
you say turnover, does that just mean people who separated? It doesn't include retirement?
It does include both.
It does, okay.
Yeah, separations would include both.
Okay.
Resignations and retirements.
Okay.
So here are our numbers. The comparison, I'm not going to tell you what school, but the school that I went back and looked at is a school similar size, similar demographics in our state. And I pulled their data, and this is the information that I got from them. So same years, you can see that we beat them in every year, pretty close in that 15, 16 year, which was a little out of bounds in terms of the number of separations that we had that year for us. But their number jumped to 22% in 16, 17. I did not have comparable data for them for the 17, 18 year. So although this is higher than we would like it to be, I don't think we're out of bounds. Talking to people in the community, maybe some of you have faced this in terms of recruitment, in terms of staff. I hear that it's not just obviously Garden City Public Schools, but many of our businesses face the same thing in terms of recruiting and retaining staff. So a little more data along that line. The state of Kansas, KASB, put out some data in 2017-18. We started the school year off with over 500 open positions, certified teaching positions across our state. That number grew in 18-19 to over 600. So again, just reiterating that it is tough to recruit in Kansas, but it's not just Kansas. So part of the issue that we have in the HR office is certainly we want the number of separations to be on the decline, which I think we've shown. But it's not just reducing that number, because the next step of that is filling those positions. So we want to keep the people that we have here, we want them to stay here, but then having the ability to turn around and fill those positions is what's becoming tough. And the reason for that is the number of candidates that are available to everyone across the nation is on the reduction or declined. So we've had recruiters come back from Michigan. Miss Scott is about to go experience that again for my office. She'll be recruiting next week in Michigan. But each of the last 2 years at Central and Eastern, we've had college staff report to us that the number of kids that they have in their program is 50% lower than what they've had previously. So just kids choosing education as a career pathway is on the decline. If you look at K-State's data, over the span of 22 years from 96 to 16, the number of people in a career pathway for education was reduced by 753 candidates in 22 years. So anecdotally, there's some other information that I've learned about. I'm on a listserv with some HR people across the state. They're doing things like asking questions, is anybody paying off student loans for candidates? And this isn't like Rolla and Elkhart and Lakin. This is Shawnee Mission. This is Blue Valley. People that historically do not have trouble filling their positions are asking questions like that. What can we do to get more candidates here? Additionally, there's a school district that has contracted people. They don't have a job for them, but they put them under contract, they've given them benefits, and they're finding something for them to do during this semester so that they have them for the next semester. They're already spending money doing that, and that's on the eastern side of the state. So if they're struggling like that, you can imagine how we're struggling. So some of the things that we've done, thinking outside the box, our student teaching incentive, we've been doing that. We've hired 29 people through that incentive program over the last 2 years. Our employee incentive, which is that kind of reward money, the bounty, if you will, it's paid for by an outside donor, a business person. We've hired 40 people using that method in the last 3 years. We have alternative pathways. We've talked a little bit about each one of those at some different presentations. The MAP program, TAP program, Transition to Teach program. We have 26 completers that have gone through that pathway. We have more yet to come in each one of those, and that continues to be a great resource for us. And then part of the reason, or some of the things that we're doing for advertising, just getting out those opportunities and options, is we hosted our first college career night, I guess you could say, in November, and we had over 40 community members, paras, long-term substitutes, come and just hear about what options they have in order to get back to maybe finish a degree in education. So partnerships that we've established, great partnerships with universities. All of the first, with the exception of Pitt State, came to our November night and were able to share what they had to offer for a candidate. It really was a smorgasbord, cafeteria plan, if you will, for people. They could go and hear about a program, what's going to be best for my family, the affordability piece of it, time frames, and they can pick and choose if they truly have a desire to get an education, what's the best pathway for them to do that. I will point out that the University of Nebraska-Kearney, 2 years ago, we developed an actual partnership with them. The others are not contractual or any way, shape, or form, but with Kearney, there's only 2 partnerships that they have with districts set up in the nation, entire nation, us and Leaf, Texas, which is down by Houston. So we feel very fortunate to be able to do that. Essentially what it does, it allows them to send us student teachers from a distance, and we have a staff member that acts as a supervisor during that, but we constantly work with these universities in order to just bring as many candidates as we can, let them share in our opportunities that we have in Garden City, and we certainly believe that this is the best place to continue or to start a career. So we send out exit survey data. Every resignation, retirement that we get, that's our trigger, of course, to post positions. And we do this through mail outs. We have an exit survey that we send out, but we typically only get about 50% of those back a year. But in that 50% that we get back, there's 3 main reasons that people share with us why they're leaving. So you've probably heard these before, so forgive me for repeating, but Southwestern Kansas living is not for them. They want to live closer to a metropolitan area. So that typically is number 1. Second is they want to be closer to family. We hire somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% in-state and 50% out-of-state, sometimes great distances away. Back in the old days, 10 years ago, a number of those were from Michigan. So we probably have in the neighborhood of 85 Michigan employees, and sometimes that ranged from 12 to 18 hours from home. So they come here, they start a career, they get married, they start having children, and what happens? Grandparents start to influence, and they want them to come back home. One case, the grandpa decided that he wanted those grandchildren back closer to him, so he told the young son and wife that he would buy them a house if they would move back home. So that's what they did. How do you say no to that? So, and lastly, involving a spouse or a significant other if they were to be transferred. So those are the three main reasons why we lose people. So with all of that information, we start thinking about, so what are our next out-of-the-box ideas? And that's the idea of the Grow Your Own program. Because we feel like we have resources here. Mr. Lappin just got done talking about that, what he's hearing, and we find that to be true. So it really does address certainly two of our exit survey information. If we can do something when we get kids from Garden City high school graduates and we can get them into the educational pathway, we feel like, number one, they're from Garden City, so that rural being used to rural Kansas life, they've already done it, they're from here. Secondly, their family is already here, so we don't have to worry about them moving back to someplace. And lastly, hopefully they're young enough not to start families, so we don't have to worry about that spouse transfer thing just yet. We do have two pathways at our high school currently. We have an elementary education pathway, an early childhood education pathway, and then a teaching and training pathway. So to get started with our November college night, we have some IPS data. And so I went back through that and scanned, and we had roughly 70 juniors and seniors that had some indication, whether they chose themselves or whether it was chosen for them, it's called Matchmaker, of having some interest in the field of education. So we sent personal letters to these 70 juniors and seniors inviting them to come and talk. We'll get more advanced in our outreach, more personal as we get through these next steps, which I'll show you. So we have started having discussions, and again, the partnership, Dr. Ruda has been vital to this, him and his staff. But we have started having conversations with the community college, the Kansas Department of Commerce, Wichita State, and of course us. And we've chosen Wichita State simply because it aligns easily with this apprentice idea. Once we get our apprenticeship approved, I believe we can expand that to different universities, but we've started with them. So essentially it's going to be creating a pathway for a high school senior to be able to graduate from high school and in 3 years' time be working in a classroom making $40,000 a year with benefits while completing a bachelor's degree and exiting with K-6 credentials. So first year, this is the proposal that we're working with the Kansas State Department of Commerce with. The first year, they graduate from high school, they go to work with for us as a para. In the time that they're doing that, they're beginning to gain some of that classroom experience, similar to what Mr. Lappin shared on a bigger scale. The university or community college has been great. They've actually created their own course of study for this program alone. Typically, as you saw, their courses are during the day, which would not lend itself to somebody working as a para for us. They've created opportunities to allow our potential students and candidates to take classes at night in order to be able to do this. We need somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 15 kids to make this work. Our goal is going to be 15. But they work for us. With the apprentice program, with approval from the Department of Commerce, they will get $3,000 of tuition, which will pay for that first year of school for them. Okay? So they work for us as a para. Our paras make roughly $13,000 a year. If that candidate can save even half that money while hopefully living at home, then they essentially pay for year 2 of school in that first year. So next year, they continue working for us as a para. they become a transfer student to Wichita State University into the TAP program. Again, setting aside half their tuition, that pays for their next year of school. There's 5 criteria that they have to meet through Wichita State University. If they meet the 5 criteria, then they would qualify for an apprentice license. It's really unique because they will not be degree holders at the time. I don't know of another license out there that enables them to do this, with the exception of a T2T license in the secondary area. But they would meet these five criteria. Wichita State recommends them to the state, and they become an apprentice with an apprentice license, which is the big ticket item for us, because then the next year I can hire them as teacher of record, and put them under contract, full salary, full benefits, while they spend that following year completing their degree, which is here. Okay? So, national ACT data says that only 4% of people taking that are entering college will choose education as their pathway. We have roughly 450 graduates right now. 4% of that is 20 students. So our goal is to get 15 of those 20 students that we can get entered into the apprentice program locally, and go through that program, never have to leave home. Everything that they need, community college, obviously they'll be taking classes live, everything after that would be online. But in 5 years' time, our return is, if we hire those 15 teachers a year, in 5 years' time, we have 75 homegrown teachers that we shouldn't have to deal with some of the things we've dealt with hiring from a distance. Questions?
So I'm not sure if I quite understood how it goes. So the apprentice license they would get after meeting the 5 criteria, is that in 1 year or 2 years?
So in between their second year, so they have to be at WSU and have to be in their program for a year. So first year, they're a para for us, they're taking classes at the community college. At the end of that first year, they'll transfer to WSU.
For the second year?
For the second year.
At WSU?
Well, it's online. They don't have to
it's
go.
online.
Yeah, they don't have to leave. It'll
Okay.
be online.
Okay.
So they continue to work with us as a para, and they do that for the second year while they're taking WSU's classes online. So once they do that, in that process, they have to meet these 5 criteria that WSU has.
In the classes they're taking at WSU are their education classes. So they got 30 hours of gen eds, and then that second year, kind of go out of order. Most people do 60 hours first, then start the education courses. They're doing 30 of gen eds, and then starting their education courses in that second year.
So they're doing 30 hours and working full-time as para?
Correct.
The unique thing about WSU's program and why it's essential that they're a para, they have to be a para in an accredited school system, because WSU doesn't require student teaching. So in a traditional format, that last semester before you're done with your degree, you have to student teach. WSU doesn't require that because, as Dr. Carlin mentioned, they've taken them and put them out of order. So in that second year, everything that they learn in class, they're applying to their job as a para. And so that application piece, they're giving credit as student teaching. So they don't have to do student teaching. It kind of goes with on-the-job training, essentially. So that's during the second year. And during that last part of the second year, then they'll have met this 5 criteria, and then WSU recommends them to the state to have an apprentice license. So they can apply for the apprentice license, they'll get awarded their apprentice license, and what that means for me then is they can become teacher of record. So we've talked about like having advanced student teachers in our district. Those people can't get the apprentice license. It's not set up in their program this way. So they can never be teacher of record. So I couldn't pay a student teacher to fill a spot. But in WSU's program, because they actually will be licensed with the state, they will call them teacher of record. So I can use them to fill an open position. So beginning that third year, I can hire them, put them in a 6th grade classroom, let's say. I can hire them as a 6th grade teacher. They can make our full salary, full benefits, but then they'll teach during the day, and then they'll finish their coursework during that year at night.
So is there a program similar to this or like this anywhere else?
Not to my knowledge. WSU's program or the Apprentice program?
Yeah, like an apprentice program.
Well, not in education that I know about, but they use apprentice programs, and a lot of, like journeymen for electricians, they use apprenticeships, things like that. But I don't know of one in education at this point.
And it might be a little confusing. There's actually two apprentice programs here. So WSU's program that has the apprentice license, that's through KSDE. They're doing this with other school districts across the state, have been for 2 years.
Yes, sir.
The apprentice program, the added apprentice program that we're talking about is with the Department of Commerce. And that's the part that helps pay for that first 30 hours, that $3,000. That if the young person starts out working as a para with us, the apprentice idea is that there's a progression where they move from a relatively low paying job into a fully licensed teacher, higher paying job, and thus the apprentice concept. So WSU's thing is all approved, and it's just a matter of plugging into it. We're in the process of working with the college and the Department of Commerce with this other apprentice piece, because one of the key pieces that we miss, that we get a lot of questions about, is, okay, I might be interested, but how do I pay for it? College costs $50,000 or $80,000. So in listening to some of our young people that have, and families that have expressed that concern, that's where we're trying to show them a way that, hey, you could do this without incurring debt if you're willing to stay at home and mom and dad are willing to have you as a basement dweller for a while, right? You could do this without incurring debt and work your way in a relatively short amount of time into a pretty middle class income, and be able to serve your community and fill a great need that we have. So it's kind of trying to combine those two things, but Wichita State's apprentice stuff is through KSDE.
Yeah.
The apprentice stuff Mr. Hogan talked about is through the Department of Commerce.
Even the KSDE apprenticeship program, that's been going for 2 years
Across the state.
across the
Across
state.
the state, right.
But, they don't help pay, so they're not a para, or they are a para.
They are a para,
Still
they
in
are.
that program.
They are a para.
And-
We're utilizing the TAP program currently with people. We just don't have this added component of getting them tuition.
And the college has really stepped up as a partner, like
Absolutely.
I said, because obviously people can't go to school during the day if they're working as a parent, saying, we'll help design that freshman year experience and build some courses that can be taken in the evenings, if we can get a critical mass of students interested in that. Yeah. So, again, and Dr. Ruda left, but
Yeah.
I think somebody mentioned that they would like to see more opportunities for partnerships, so here you go.
And they've been wonderful, working with us, because they had to completely revamp their enrollment, their course schedule. They've done it all just for us, in this program. So they've been outstanding.
I hope we're collecting data on these programs, because I'm really curious. It seems very quickly to get through a program and work, and so I wonder how successful people are able to get through this program.
Well,
And then 2, do they stay in the profession, And 3, do they stay in the state, or will they stay here? So I hope that there's a lot of data collected.
so Dana, we have,
Program.
and not all your questions are answered, but we have 26 completed in the MAP program, the TAP program, the Transition to Teach program. People are doing it, and that's, again, the Transition to Teach is the same way. They teach during the day, they take courses at night. The MAP program isn't tied to education at all, so at some point, they have to have a day job, and it's a condensed program over 12 months, just to get an education degree. And we've, pardon the pun, we've tapped into all of those things at this point. We have 26 people that have done it. I think that number will grow hugely, because not just the benefit of serving the community, but it's going to open doors to people about possibilities, people that didn't consider going to college. And we have a a young male that starts into education, didn't think that he could. We have a nice pathway, essentially debt-free, for him to do that. It shows his siblings that it can be done, and then they start having interest. I mean, I think this is a huge, huge opportunity for our community.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that 26 completed in how many years? It's just the last year, or?
No, not the last year, but a couple of these programs are relatively new. So the MAP program's been probably 4 years maybe. The TAP program is new 2 years ago. Transition to Teach, I did a presentation to the board maybe in July. That program is crazy big now. Probably, I don't even know, I can't remember the data, but it's grown something like from 40 participants to almost 200 participants with one university in a very short amount of time. So it's really growing.
I have a question. Does the Apprentice program you described put any additional burden or responsibility on the supervising teacher while they're serving as a para?
I don't believe so. So like, as far as them documenting or any of those kinds of things, I don't believe so. I can check a little further in that, but we've had several people go through that and are actually ready to be hired for the fall under our TAP program.
The MAT program, I'm sorry, the TAP program does though, right? There's
Well-
more mentoring and more supervision from the university.
Not on our people, though. The MAP program, or the TAP program, they actually, WSU will actually provide mentorship for these people. It's, I don't know what the number is, 16 or 23, I'm sorry, those numbers stick in my head, but there's something like that the university is actually employing, and they provide mentors for that. Now, we provide them locally as well, which we would do for all of our new staff, but they actually have their own mentorship as they're going through the program.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Laura? No, thank you. Well, I know you guys are all gonna look forward to the bombardment of all my notes for the National Association of School Boards Conference, but I literally just flew in today, so. Alrighty then. The next meeting of the Board of Education will take place on Monday, April 15th, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the board meeting room at the Educational Support Center here at 105 Plymouth Street. So we will now move for executive session.
I move we go into executive session for 10 minutes to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under A1A, beginning at 7:31. And the open meeting will resume in the board meeting room at 7:40. Well, now it's 7:42 and 7:32. I would like to invite Dr. Carlin and Keith Hogan to join us in the executive session.
Do you have a second?
Well, Mr. Hogan wore a mask.
You already breathed through this, so stay far away. Second.
I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that.